Christ, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's join our hearts in the spirit of prayer. Holy One, you have called and we have come. We thank you for the ways that you weave our lives together for your holy purpose. You love each and every one, including those people who didn't fully support the Patriots on Sunday. We thank you for the ways that you help us reach across differences to work for this community. Please help our listening, our speaking, and our laboring to make this community strong, healthy, and full of the fullness you intend. In your name we pray, Jesus. Amen.
Amen. Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Reverend. Will the clerk call the roll?
Councilman Bastian.
Here.
Councilman Stiltner.
Here.
Vice
Sorry.
Mayor Tremont.
Here. Used to go in second.
Mayor Burnett.
Here.
I've got a designated answerer tonight.
It seems like there's about 6 of us up here out of the 4 names you called,
Yeah,
too.
right.
Consent agenda. Public comments on consent agenda items only. If anybody would like to speak on consent agenda items 6 through 9, now is your time. There being none, agenda approval.
Motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the agenda. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 The agenda is approved. Now can we have a motion to approve the items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll. Items 6, 7, 8, and 9.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Citizen participation non-agenda. Is Terry Rowe here?
It's pretty quick.
I don't see him.
I don't know.
Robin, do we have any others?
Nope, that's it.
Okay. Item 10, council comments. Why don't we start with Mr. Chase?
I have no comments tonight, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Drew?
Nothing from me.
Scott?
Yeah, I was trying to find the email here. We got an email about the scheduling of a workshop with the Volusia County School Board members, and I just wanted to make sure that we would have enough time. There's a lot going on in the school board right now, and with 10 schools in our city, the schools are a huge part of our community and who we are and who we've been and will continue to be. So I just want to make sure that we're going to have enough time there for not only some discussion from our counterparts at the school board, but also for community members that may want to address both boards with any of their suggestions and concerns. So there's plenty of time, and before the meeting, I think Jake let me know that it's possible maybe to bump that back to 4:30, which we've got a meeting directly after, which should give us roughly, what do you think, 90 minutes, Jake? Hour and a half?
85.
85-ish.
We got to get from Lakeside.
Yeah.
I expect that would be I anticipate a well-intended or at least attended meeting, so I'd like to do it over at Lakeside and have it, instead of us up here and them down there, have it on an even playing field at Lakeside. So I've scheduled it for Lakeside. If we start at 4:30, we can be done at 6:20 and kind of jog over here and start right away, as long as we ever act together for this meeting.
4:30, and that's on the 19th?
19th, and that's subject to
Their availability.
everybody's
Their availability.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, Jake, as far as structuring an agenda for that meeting, what can we do to help with that?
So the subjects that I've given to Dr. Russell are the Port Orange school ratings, an update on child protection, Chief and I will discuss some of our traffic concerns with the schools, some of which we've addressed, most of which are our problem, or not our problem, but out in the streets. But I think the school is thinking of ways to help mitigate some of those traffic concerns with increased driving, you know, loops and whatnot. I'd like an update on, I think an update on that is in order if there is. And I'm hearing rumblings of maybe the school out by Town West is starting to gather some steam as for possibly planning a new one after, I think, New Smyrna's, or New Smyrna's just opened, so I don't know where we are, but I'm hearing rumblings that they're talking about that. So those are the things that I've heard from particularly you. I don't know if teachers' wages are in there or not, but that could be something I could add. And then I've asked Dr. Russell for what their concerns might be for us.
Tricky, too late to add anything on there if I send you an email?
As long as there's consensus with council that that's an item, and we do have a meeting before that, but I can.
It wouldn't be anything big.
It's a workshop, so I can pump it out via email.
And I don't think we want to, I think we want to have an agenda with some structure, but because it's a workshop, I want to give everybody a little bit of latitude to take whatever's discussed in a number of different directions, both from their board and ours.
And one of the comments that I heard that I want to put my 2 cents in with that is you know, these joint meetings are sometimes used when there are issues that can't be resolved. I would like to change the kind of the thought process on that, is to have joint meetings to solve problems before they get so out of control that we have to have a joint meeting to solve them, and we can get a lot done by collaborating early on when problems are very small, where we can solve them with that one would be easy till it becomes too hard. So I'm hoping to have more of these. We do it with we do it in-house with our Parks and Rec twice a year, and the school board does it with some other cities twice a year. I would hope that we could probably fit it in twice a year with the school board, so it doesn't wait till things come to a head before we have to get together and take care of some things.
I don't know that wages would be an appropriate topic. That seems to me like that would be something between the school district and their union, not us. But I do want to add to your comment with additional schools perhaps being built in the region of this part of the county. Some insight or vision on that would be great to hear.
Yep.
But also, a while back there was some talk that they were going to be adding some additional programs to the high schools that may alleviate some of the population at Spruce Creek, which is a huge area for us in terms of traffic impacts in and out. And you know, if you go to the campus, it just seems like it's so overgrown, the capacity for that school, and the answer is just add portables. And adding portables while that works on the campus location.
Which is why they're at 130% still.
Yeah, it doesn't make the roads wider and it doesn't reduce traffic. So I just kind of curious into the future with all the development, especially going on in the southeast Volusia region, what their anticipated growth impacts in the high school levels particularly, and how we can either reduce some of that footprint at our high school, that one in particular.
We can
yes.
Definitely add a few things, and I'll send out a draft agenda for you guys to look at and let me know if it
And then
works.
briefly, if they could just touch on curriculum visions. Recently there's been some news reporting on the elementary schools no longer have textbooks, so they're not using textbooks, and there seems to be a considerable debate and concern. And some of the feedback that I was getting is that a lot of folks didn't even realize that. And I don't know if that's a new trend in education or what, but maybe if they could touch on that, because I believe
You can ask them.
Yeah, there'll be a considerable amount of folks from the community there, and that would probably be something that perhaps somebody could speak to that. That would be great.
Sure thing.
Next week on the 30th, I've got 3 things going on at one time, including the annual oversight committee for public school facility planning. That's at 5:30 out at VCS, and usually they do talk about facilities planning. And Jake, honestly, I would not mind if somebody from community development could make themselves available to attend with me, because with 3 things going on at once, I can't stay the whole meeting, but there are some insights on that they do go over school capacity and enrollment in the different schools there. I think we'd be able to bring back some information. If we can make somebody available, I appreciate that.
Yep, we'll have somebody there.
Okay.
On that topic, Jake, I wouldn't mind just an update on a new renovating of Spruce Creek High School. I know that's in the works. That would be wise for us to know. I don't think it's anytime soon, but it could creep up on us.
Ask them at the workshop.
Yeah, this is a workshop.
That would definitely be something.
And, you know, not for nothing, but we're all welcome to every, school board meeting. They're all open to the public as well, and some of these questions can be asked there, and I think there's a lot of impact if a council member or a staff member shows up at a school board meeting and asks some of these questions, because some of them are Port Orange specific, but some of them are county-wide too, so.
Mhm.
No
But
doubt.
yeah, I'll add those, put out, put a draft agenda out, see if you all have anything to add, and then I'll send it to Dr. Russell.
Make your notes for the 19th, gentlemen. What else you got, Scott?
That's all for now.
Okay. Jake, just 2 things. One, I sent you an email earlier today. I appreciate you looking into the medians on Town West, and
Sure.
can't wait for you to get back to me on that one.
I can't wait to get back to you.
Yeah, I know, huh? The other one, Port Orange Days at the Capitol. Have we got firm dates for that yet?
We do. So Volusia County Days are March 19th and 20th, and we'll roll right out of that into March 21st being Port Orange Days.
Okay.
I would expect that the 19th we'll be taking advantage of Jim Cameron's connections and spending the day with the Volusia County folks, and then kind of intermingling on the 20th with a little bit of Port Orange specific, depending on who he's got us going to see, whether that benefits Port Orange particularly or not, and then the 21st will be all us.
Certainly.
And I have asked Sean to kind of coordinate with Jim Cameron to maximize the 20th.
Okay. Very good.
And I will be going up on I'll call it more of a work visit than a visit, elected officials visit, on the 20th and 21st with I thought I saw her here, with Amanda Lasecki, to make sure our grants are in order and that the bills that Representative Leak and Senator Wright have to put in are all in order, and if they need anything from us.
Committee week.
Yes,
Let us
sir.
know if you need anything.
Yes, sir.
I'm more than happy to let you make that committee week trip.
Yes, sir.
And we'll do the heavy lifting in March.
Perfect.
Item 11, report from Kemper Sports on the Cypress Head Golf Course.
Mayor, if I may, before, I'm not sure what the protocol is, if it's possible to reopen the citizen comments.
We'll make a motion to that effect.
I'd like to make a motion to reopen citizen comments as Mr. Rose has arrived.
I'll second.
All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We're going to backtrack and give Terry another shot at this.
Terry?
Oh, excuse me. Lost my notebook here.
Okay.
I think I need to introduce myself. You're gonna start the clock on me, so I'll have to go fast.
No, you need to introduce yourself, please, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank
Very
you.
sorry. My name's Terry Rowe. I'm sure most of you know me. And I live on 3449 Shamrock Drive in Port Orange, Florida. I'm here tonight to request, find information. I'm sort of in the dark. I was asked to turn in receipts of the dock that I had built. I did that on November the 19th, 2018, about 2 months ago. So far, no one's contacted me about payment. A crew came to tear the dock down. Far as I was concerned, the dock can go. It could have went a month ago if I had been paid. But I've got close to $14,000 in there. I sent those papers in to you, Jake, and I feel like there's not even been the decency of a phone call to say this is okay, this is not okay, we can't accept this, or anything. I'm sure 2 months is quite a long time to wait. So I feel like I've sort of been treated, you know, what's a phone call? But so be it. And I just wanted to say in 1542 it was first recorded, a man keeping his word, or my word is my bond. Most of you people have told me one thing and done another. The newspaper did print that I was going to be reimbursed, but it didn't have an amount. So how many of y'all would allow the dock to be tore down before you know how much you're getting paid for it? I feel like I deserve that right. I feel like that right's mine. And so we don't, me and the city of Port Orange, go deeper into this and costing more, both of us, more expense. I'm asking for my request for my money to either be approved, rejected, to find out what's wrong with it. I deserve some consideration of an answer. So I'm asking the council to act on that and to do that, and if it's a vote required, so be it tonight. Save my 36 unless you got questions.
Any questions for Mr. Rowe?
What? Are you gonna respond?
No, Jake, the only thing I would ask is if you could take a look at this for us and please respond to Mr. Rowe accordingly. Let him know where we are in the process and let us know as well.
Yeah.
Yes, Mayor, I have some answers for council on the timeline right now, if you'd like to hear them after,
Sure.
after Mr. Rowe sits down, if you'd like.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, we'll get you some answers, Terry.
I didn't understand what he said.
We're gonna get you some answers.
Tonight? Tomorrow? When, Doc?
I'll answer as soon as you're done with your seconds, and I'll tell council what the timeline is.
All right, sir, thank you.
Thanks, Terry.
So council, before I can liquidate the cost of the dock and give Mr. Rowe a proposal based on the money or the bill he sent in with his costs, we needed to terminate the license. The legal request to terminate the license was a 30-day window. So I put in a request or a intent to terminate on, I think it was January 8th. So February 8th will be 30 days, the license will be terminated, and then we can remove the dock. I think I reported to council that I got a little ahead of myself on removing the dock and executed a contract a little too quickly. We put the dock back together because the license hadn't been terminated yet. On February 9th, as soon as the license is terminated, I'll re-execute the contract to get the dock removed, and within the next 2 or 3 days here, prior to the dock being removed, we'll send a letter of offer for the financial burden that Mr. Rowe had to build the dock to him, and he'll get 30 days to respond to that as well. So that's kind of the timeline.
So 2 to 3 days, so we should be able to
have something.
He should have something.
He should have something. We're going to send it via email and registered mail as well, like we sent the license
and then he has
termination.
30 days to respond to that.
30 days to accept the offer for the amount, or come to talk to council. And I'll CC you all this week on Friday
Okay.
with that
Okay.
offer.
We'd appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
There you go.
All right.
All right, getting back in line. Item 11, report from Kemper Sports on the Cypress Head Golf Course. Didn't I see you before somewhere?
Good evening, Mr. City Manager, members of the council, Mr. Mayor. Bob Duquette, Cypress Head General Manager. This report actually is for the month of November, so we were a little delayed. I wasn't here for the first week of the first city council meeting back in January. So essentially this is for the month of November. Overall golf revenues for November finished just slightly lower than our projected budget, and our range revenues slightly lower, and the pro shop revenues were also lower. Our payroll again for the month was lower, savings of about $10,347. Most of that's just from controlling our labor costs whenever we're slow or need to cut some staffing back. Our operating expenses finished lower than our budget amount, and since November is the second month in our fiscal year for 2018-2019, revenues have been slightly lower than projected. Some of that's, of course, weather-related, just some cold snaps and rain in the month of November. But range and pro shops were just slightly lower as well. Our tee sheet activity for the month actually was a total of 3,638 rounds, and that included 3,017 paid rounds, 392 annual rounds, and 229 other rounds. Broken down, the round types are 2,807 18-hole rounds with 753 9-holes. Pro Shop did well in the month of November. We did have a little bit of a demo day at that time. We did $4,000, over $4,000 in gift cards and $6,000 in Pro Shop sales. Our staff, of course, myself and my other staff members, we continue to offer lesson packages for beginners, advanced players, and in November we opened a series of clinics that were done under the lights so that people who are working could actually come at a later point in time and take lessons in the evening, which is really well received, and the lights have been wonderful. And those range lights, we stay operational on both Friday and Saturday nights so that anybody who wants to come over, call it Friday Night Lights, come over and practice. Saturday's a little bit slower. It seems to be date night, so no one seems to be coming for that one. But we're going to promote with Kevin Hanna, who's the Flag Sticks operator, about something about buckets of range balls with some beers, kind of a combination. Sorry.
You may have more attendance the other way.
You switch it around and I'm there.
Okay, one range ball, bucket of beer. No. Actually, for the month of November, we are also a drop-off facility for the Volusia County Toys for Tots Foundation, and that is a wonderful wonderful raiser. Our staff and as well as all of our members are really good as far as donating toys and everything else for this particular program. They did pick them up in December, and we're always one of the largest location spots. They usually need at least 2 vans or a big truck to pick up all the toys, so that's really great. We're always maintaining our visibility on social platforms, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. We've got some really great overall ratings for our Mindshare comments reviews. Our golf course received a 9.2 and a recommended rating of 9.4, and our service is at 9.2, so we're maintaining that aspect as well. We try to listen to anyone who has any constructive criticisms, and whatever we can do to help them out within our budget constraints, we will work on it for whatever's requested. Our entire team is dedicated to serving the needs of the community and providing the best-in-class service. And in December, we will be doing promotions, which we have done. We're special offers for gift cards, which are promotions to increase a little bit of the sales, getting some gift card products plus a lot of seasonal sales to improve their revenue in terms of the golf shop. So that's our up-to-date for the month of November.
Questions, council? Drew?
No, I appreciate it. Getting to be a kind of time of year where hopefully everything will be
Absolutely.
going good. Winter folks are here, so business should pick up,
There's
so it's all good.
Definitely a big increase in stuff. The only drawback as of yesterday, we had over 200 players scheduled to play, and we ended up with about 60, and they were all Canadians. Because the Floridians don't like to play when it's cold. But
When it's cold.
when it's cold. But yes, the weather has changed. We've got definitely an input from a lot of our northern friends that are coming down to play.
Good.
Scott?
More so just a comment. If council has consensus, then so be it. But recently I was out in Salt Lake City Utah. I mentioned this to Jake actually the other day. And we were doing some.
No, you cannot add mountains to the course.
Is there anything you can do for snowmobiling out? No. We were doing a little bit of skiing out there, which is quite interesting whenever you take a family from Florida and you go out there. But I had an interesting conversation with someone out there who was telling me that the ski industry out there was really starting to see a decline in almost like a generational gap. And as they're telling me this story, it almost was directly in my mind. I was thinking golf. And one of the things they had done out there is they had created kind of a program and partnered with folks that were avid skiers who cared about the sport, and that along with middle school age kids who had never skied, didn't know anything about it, and they created a program where these kids could come and ski for free. They'd get 2 or 3 passes or whatever, and they would pair them up with folks that were avid, that would take them out and teach them and give them a lesson, and they were really already starting to see a great return, where now a lot of these kids were coming for ski lessons and packages and purchasing, and they're trying to build that next generation, so to speak. And so one of the things I would ask to take a look at is to see if there's, and I know we've talked about it on the board before in the past, but continue to look at opportunities, especially in our city, in our region. How do we build that next generation of golf interest, and what can we do? And maybe there's times, obviously not in the peak season, but maybe there's times where the men's club and the ladies clubs and stuff, and we can cultivate together with our youth community, either through academic awards or whatever, and provide them an opportunity to come out and play a few rounds of golf at no cost with some folks who can mentor them and get them excited. So maybe when they get to high school, they join the golf team and so forth and so on, and it builds a generation that's more interested, that'll help sustain that course. That being said, that's just a comment and an idea, but in your presentations, if you could touch on that from time to time on what are we doing and what can we do to work on that future sustainability of folks that are going to come out there and want to play golf to help sustain the course.
There's actually a couple things. Actually, you talked about the pricing and stuff, and for the most part, our junior rates during the winter months are $5 for a junior to play with dad or mom or whoever the case may be. So it's very reasonable from that point. During the summer, we do offer a free. You come with somebody, and you're good to go. All of the kids who come to the course at this point, and I do know there's a young man on the belongs to him that will come very regularly, and they're always given free range balls. So mom and dad do not have to pay for range balls. They can come out and they will spend 2-3 hours on the range just hitting balls, which is really great.
No beer though, right?
What's that?
No beer though.
No beer. But yes, the elusiveness of getting those juniors involved is very important. We're signed up for the PGA Junior League, which is something that our team would try to play other teams in the Volusia County area. The hardest part is getting them to sign up and commit to it, because they're so involved with some of the other sports. Their parents are saying, nope, I can't commit to this for 7-8 weeks.
Have you ever gone out and talked to any of the athletic directors at the high schools to say, do they have an idea on how you can, you know what I'm saying? I know what you're saying.
Yeah.
And a lot of the kids that are in those junior leagues, it's because they've got a mom and a dad or such that like to play golf as well. But there are going to be kids out there who don't have anybody in their family that plays golf that may say, you know what, maybe I'll give that a shot. Actually, and they come out there and they realize how fun it is, and it'd be something new to the whole family, obviously, but maybe we can find a way to get their foot.
That's
anyhow,
actually
just an idea.
That is good. I have not spoken to them, but I can reach out to those, and that would be helpful, especially more so even in the elementaries or the more grade school aspects. I think would be great. Get them started.
Well, I think if you target them in middle school, then that may also help continue the interest into high school once there's a team.
Absolutely.
To get on if they're interested in a competitive part of it. So
perfect. Yes.
Did Lance's son go on a scholarship?
Yes.
Yes.
So that's another
great
motivator for parents.
Nice selling point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I believe he is doing his master's program in Oklahoma, from last I heard, and stuff. And he's been around quite a bit. And
he's a Sooner now.
Wes Graham also. They've Coach Gross from the school has done a tremendous job with the high school team and everything else. And we do see a little bit of the Atlantic High, but not as much.
Cool. Thanks.
Anything else, Chase?
Still trying to get rid of that hazard on hole number 2. Every time I see it, I think I can get over it. But I'm losing too many balls.
It's still there.
You just gotta get better. Go practice at the range.
I
Walk around
remember
and
what that
take a
hazard
drop.
was like when it first opened 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah, it's thinned down a little bit. That's good. That makes it even more appealing. Because at least I think I can
Can't
find the
correlate,
ball
you
afterwards.
can't correlate what you think your range is on a basketball court to what you think it is on a golf course, coach.
Second-
Get a better driver.
Thanks, Bob.
Second,
Okay, thank you.
Bob, any tournaments coming up? I'm sorry. You got any tournaments coming up?
Our first tournaments, actually, we try, most people don't want to pay the extra cost for doing tournaments during January or February because it's prime time season for us. So our first tournament, I believe, is March 3rd, which is going to be the Academy of Finance, Spruce Creek and stuff. So Reggie has got, I think, almost every weekend booked with some events. Different size numbers, from either 60 to 120 or more and stuff. So she's done a pretty good job of getting both March, April, and most of May taken care of.
That's just a good selling point every time.
It is, and it's great to have the tournaments. They're really well organized. It's a good thing for the community. It's a great fundraiser for them. Plus, it helps us out tremendously because you get that many more people that are coming to the course and saying, "Hey, yeah, this is open to everyone to play." So it's a big event. Thank you.
Very good. Item 12, Citizens Advisory Committee for TPO. Bobby Ball is under the belief that his wife is more important because it's their 19th wedding anniversary, so we will not be hearing from him tonight.
Okay.
So that brings us directly to the
we'll
Golf
have another
Advisory Board report. So, all golf all the time. Well, I think it's interesting too, he was using the weather as an excuse. You were out in it yesterday. It
Yes,
didn't
I
stop
was.
you.
Yes, it was, and I'm not Canadian either, so I'm just not too sprite, I guess.
All you had to
Yeah,
do
it
was
was-
wait a day.
It was, I know, it was 37 degrees when I started, and I have a golf scooter, excuse me, so it's very cold. Anyhow, Rich Lee, I'm currently the chair of the Golf Advisory Board for this year. Thank you for having us, and I want to start with basically congratulating Bob Duquette for the fiscal year last year because we ran in the black for the first time, I think, in some time. It was a small amount, but it's terrific to see that, and a credit, I think, to his management of assuring that he's got the right resources in the right places and cutting back on labor when necessary, when it's not a very busy time. It does bring up one thing, there is another one. We do have some concern about the budget for the golf course. We want to make sure that we continue, as the course has improved, conditions have improved because of the agronomic plan that's been put in place, and Bob's used some resources from Champions Gate to help him do that. We want to make sure that that continues because it's in a good condition today. As an example, the biggest one I can think of is that when I talked to you the last time, we talked about weeds on the greens, and they were numerous and almost an embarrassment on the practice green. Those are almost completely gone. I mean, you have to hunt for one to find them now, which is really terrific. It makes the course look a whole lot better. But we want to make sure that we can continue to do that. Speaking of the greens, there are some of the greens where there's some work that's going to need to be done because there's too much shade that gets onto the green. 18 is a specific example. The grass is having trouble growing because it doesn't, particularly this time of year, it doesn't get sun until almost 3 or 4 in the afternoon, which
that
means it
right
gets
side
maybe
of
an
the green?
hour. Yeah, the right side of the green, he has to sand it in order to keep it going, which makes the grass very, very thin. They're very fast, they're very fair, but we need to be able to do something, and I think there's a couple other places in the course where we're going to have to cut some trees down in order to accommodate the sun to make sure that it gets to the greens and works well. The other thing from a budget concern is the cart paths. They have marked several areas that need to be ground down. The grinding, however, can only go to a certain depth because the integrity of the concrete starts to dissipate. As you get it too thin, it'll just crack. So that's a concern. There's also a concern if you look between hole 13 and 14, there's a shallow where the cart path is. It is almost always underwater. That really needs to be completely taken out and raised or build a bridge over it to circumvent that because it's very, very wet, very damp, and it's a mess. And
Well, your ball's going to get wet on 14 anyway. That's just a prelude.
well, that's true. I tried to miss that hole too. The other is there's 2 wooden bridges. As I said, I just played yesterday, so that some of this is new. On hole number 2, there's a bridge that goes across from the tee box to the fairway. That bridge has started to deteriorate to the extent that Bob's had to put a plywood patch over part of it in order so you don't fall through, because the wood is rotting away. They're not that old, and apparently whoever put those in, there was no warranty of the wood. So they're looking to replace those, and Bob's telling me it's like $60 a board in order to replace what needs to be replaced. The one on between 17 and 18 has got a hole. I mean, there's an issue there, I think a safety concern that he's going to repair, I think, in the next 24 hours, so that somebody doesn't fall through the thing, because it is dangerous. But it's, again, $60 a board. I mean, these things kind of add up, and I just want to make sure we got the budget in order to do those things. At the meeting, we discussed a resolution 9232, which probably means nothing to y'all, but it's the golf course rules and regulations, which I think were put in place about 1992. It hasn't been updated. We're going to go through as a golf advisory board and probably have that as a single item on the agenda next time around, so that we can go through and modify that and bring it forward to you to review. Course conditions, as I said, continue to improve, and that's terrific. The one thing that continues to come up, and we don't have any material data to go by, it does appear to most people that the restaurant isn't doing well. Kevin keeps, when I ask him, he says, oh yeah, we're doing okay, and I know he's got a 3-year plan before he makes any money, but it just doesn't seem like it's getting the traction that it needs to do more business. One of the ideas that came forward from the golf board was, is there something we could add to the utility bill inexpensively, where you can just print, have you tried flag sticks that Cypress said? Just some comment on that to try to encourage people to, at least think, what's flag sticks, or, the flag stick restaurant, the Port Orange, something on there that would be inexpensive, because I know he's done a flyer. He did, I think he said the number was something like 30,000, and he got a terrible response.
He's done radio too.
Yeah, and that doesn't seem to hit it. So we're trying to think of, is there another way that we can encourage people to utilize that facility, because it doesn't seem to be getting that much.
We'll see what we can do on
yeah.
that.
Yeah, it's just
I don't know, but if
I don't know
it's
how,
free, what the heck,
yeah,
right?
that's what I'm thinking. If we can just print another line or a couple
Sure.
of lines on there, maybe that's an inexpensive
We'll
way.
take a look.
That's all I've got, unless anybody has any questions.
Questions for Rich?
Good, thanks.
Thank you, Rich.
The key to 2 is to take 3 shots to get over. Don't try.
I do.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Jake,
Move to the red tees.
Jake, is it possible, like the bridge that he's talking about, I don't know what the total expense to do something like that, but like they did at the high school with the school board, where they have contractor donate the cost to do that for a naming right for so much time. I mean, is something like that?
My golf course manager can come up with some
I'm
very
just thinking,
innovative ways to manage his golf course.
Gotta be a lot
without
of
the city manager micromanaging his management of the golf course. Is that right, Bob?
Oh, no, I was speaking more from because we own it. Is that possible?
He manages it.
Yeah.
We give him budget money. Go ahead, Bob.
Got to be a contractor out there
Explain it
playing
to us.
golf.
I just want to thank Rich for what he's got to say. So a couple of things. Sue Lavallo, who's our Parks and Recs liaison, was out over the weekend. We determined or discussed all the tree aspect itself about what can come down. We've already in play and started working that process itself. So
As long as it doesn't make the course easy.
No.
Can't have that.
No, they're so deep in, but like he says, because of the light structure. So we've already addressed that aspect. We've already addressed the aspect of the wood, but I love the thought of possibly getting some local talent to be able to come in and say, hey, listen, this is the Scott Stilter Bridge.
Don't name it after me.
Whatever the case may be,
Yeah.
so that would be great. But all the, what he may come is about for the greens or for the trees in particular, and the bridges are our main concern, but they're being taken care of.
Hey,
Thank
so,
you.
Yeah.
Bob, I was kind of flippant there, but we are taking a dock down in the next 45 days. There might be some wood to be used to make
Absolutely.
I would love to look, yes.
Perfect.
Because those planks.
It's open to the public right now if you'd like the address.
Because the,
Susan's got both projects, so we'll make sure that if that
You
stuff
get
can
the
be
wood.
used, that we
That would be great,
disassemble
because in all
it.
honesty, the planks that they have, because they're pressure treated and they're supposed to last, and what they're like $60 a plank.
Oh, we
And
know.
on one small.
We're about to pay a gentleman for them.
And one small piece of 17 to 18, there's almost 30-something planks there.
Yeah.
So it's really challenging.
So what we may need to do is, council, instead of having a demo crew go out and take that dock down, we might need to get our waders on and do it on a Saturday on our own.
And
But
I could certainly supply some staff if
okay,
necessary. But
we'll talk to you about it.
That'd be awesome.
We'll let you
Yeah,
guys.
good. Okay, good. All right, super, thanks.
Appreciate you. Fire Pension Board interim member. It is the recommendation of staff to have Councilman Stiltner be appointed as interim member until such time as council directs a permanent appointment, whether it be Scott or somebody else, that following the election of a District 1 council person.
Move to approve.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Council comments? There being none, anyone else like to speak to this? There being none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? None? You're hired.
You're the man.
It's a bonus for that, right?
Yeah.
Attaboy.
Item 15. Public hearing, second reading of ordinance number 2018-32, amending Chapter 10 of the Code of Ordinances pertaining to urban chickens. Ordinance number 2018-32 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Code of Ordinances, Chapter 10, Section 10-20, establishing a permanent chicken program, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date. I
Motion
kept a
to-
straight face reading that.
Move to approve ordinance number 2018-32.
There you go. Second.
Can we name this the Scott Stiltner?
No,
We have a motion. We have a second. Council comments.
No, not second reading.
Second
no.
reading. Would anyone here care to speak to it? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
No.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 3-1. Item 16 is second reading of ordinance 2019-1, Land Development Code Text Amendment. Ordinance number 2019-1 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending the Land Development Code Chapter 15 relating to residential subdivision signage, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-1.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Council comments? There being none, would anyone here care to speak to it? There being none, back to us. Call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to second reading of ordinance number 2019-3, amending section 2-275 of the Code of Ordinances relating to local preferences.
Move to adopt ordinance
Can
number.
I read it first?
Oh, too long of a pause.
I had to do this and I had to do that. I'm sorry, but I like that you're ready. Hey,
I'm on it.
he's getting the hang of this.
I'm on it.
Ordinance number 2019-3 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending Chapter 2, Article 6, Division 2, Section 2-275 to establish a new subsection regarding application of the local purchasing preference, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for codification, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to adopt ordinance number 2019-3.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Second reading, council, comments?
No, not on
There
second
being
reading.
none, anyone here care to speak to this one? There being none, final crack at it? Nope, call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to second reading of ordinance number 2019-4, amending this Code of Ordinances relating to the Golf Advisory Board, and no pause in between so Chase doesn't get thrown up as I read ordinance number 2019-4, an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Volusia County, Florida, amending section 50-108 of Code of Ordinances to reduce the number of members on the Golf Advisory Board and remove the City Council member position to the Golf Advisory Board. Amending section 50-109, Code of Ordinances to provide for initial appointment terms. Amending section 50-111, Code of Ordinances to reduce the number of board members necessary to form a quorum, providing for repeal of conflicting ordinances, providing for severability, and providing for an effective date.
Move to approve ordinance number 2019-4.
Second.
Very well done.
You're going too fast now.
We have a motion, we have a second by Councilman Bastian. Council comments? I see none. Would anyone here care to speak to it? I see none. Any more last bite at the apple?
We're good.
Call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stelter.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. You're having way too much fun, Mr. Vice Mayor. You're gonna love this one.
Excited. Waiting all night for this one.
First reading of ordinance number 2019-5, Land Development Code Chapters 2, 16, 17, and 18, wireless communication facilities sitting. Ordinance number 2019-5 is an ordinance of the City of Port Orange, Florida, amending the Land Development Code of the City of Port Orange to amend Chapter 2, Section 2, definitions, to repeal and replace Chapter 16, miscellaneous regulations, Section 9, personal wireless communications, with a new Chapter 16, miscellaneous regulations, Section 9, entitled wireless communication facility sitting, with the citing with the following subsections: purpose, general, siting preferences, procedural requirements, specific regulations and procedures for proposed facilities modification applications, protection of the public, amateur radio antennas, enforcement, amending Chapter 18, Section 3B-25, addressing special requirements for communication towers in residential districts, amending Chapter 16, Section 4, addressing the height, amending Chapter 16, Section 5, addressing special setbacks, amending Chapter 17, zoning regulations, Section 1, in general, to reference the wireless communications facility siting regulations set forth in Chapter 16, Section 9, amending Chapter 17, zoning regulations, to remove all references to antennas, camouflaged antennas, and camouflage guide, lattice, and monopole communications towers, providing for severability, providing for codification, providing for the termination of moratorium adopted pursuant to ordinance number 2018-25, and providing an effective date.
Nicely done. Move to approve ordinance 2019-5.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. I tell you what, I should have had somebody with glasses on read that one. You're up.
Thank you. Tim Berman, Community Development. I think it's basically last fall, the council had approved a moratorium regarding personal wireless communication facilities on private property, and basically requested staff to go look back at our current code and provide updates on that then. So what we've got here before you tonight is an updated code. Basically, we indicated before, our last code amendment was in 1996. So we basically got a code here which basically provides for co-location preferences, setback information, and further develops the review process for cell towers. So we kind of outlined about the 15 of the major points there in the staff report, and got a presentation to kind of go briefly over some of those high-end aspects of this code amendment then. Perfect. First is the code amendment is set up to basically, when an applicant comes in to put a tower or an antenna in the city of Port Orange, the preference is to co-locate on an existing tower within the city of Port Orange. That would be basically kind of the map we've got up here shows in the stars the existing facilities we have in Port Orange on cell towers. In addition to co-location, the preference of co-locating is to be on a camouflage tower first versus a monopole or a lattice pole then. So a camouflage tower is kind of like the one we've got here with the flagpole. Similar to that one on the famous Madeline Avenue Church property is camouflage tower. Majority of our other towers here in Port Orange are the monopole then. If co-location cannot be done and they're able to provide data to support that co-location cannot meet the needs of for the cell tower on that one, they move into a siting hierarchy for a new communication tower. And the way that's been created is that it establishes the criteria, essentially 1 through 6 then, basically, of where these can be located in. The first is that camouflage tower would be able to locate on municipal owned property. That would be a fire station, a police station, a city park, city center area then. And the camouflage pole would be something similar to what you see at the top two there, the flagpole again, or in this case is a palm tree that's shaped to be looking like a cell tower. So that's the first preference in terms of new tower location. If that can't be accomplished, then it would go to a non-camouflage tower on municipal property. And then same thing for the light industrial and commercial industrial zone properties. The preference goes camouflage first and then non-camouflage. If those sightings do not work and they're able to demonstrate that, they can propose to go onto a property that has another zoning district other than residential. In that case, that's going to require a variance for that approval, which would require you to come before Planning Commission and ultimately City Council for approval of those cell towers then. So in this case, basically, if they propose a cell tower on municipal-owned property or property zoned commercial industrial or light industrial, that can be reviewed and approved through staff approval process, the site plan. If it's on any other zoning districts other than the ones we mentioned before, like a community commercial and PCD, then that's going to require variance and come back before this board. City Council will ultimately decide then.
Okay.
So that's the way the criteria has been set up then.
Tim, before you move on for that, you said something that if they can demonstrate that it would not work in a specific location, what is that requirement? What is what demonstrates?
There's in the code basically we list in terms of, you know, if it won't meet, you know, if their need is basically to service a specific area, and they can demonstrate that basically that none of the towers that we have here can meet that need, nor the location of where these properties are won't meet that need, then they can demonstrate that to us. Basically that would be enough to make, you know, kind of put them in that hierarchy to go, okay, you can go in this location here.
Is it an independent party that's determining whether?
Well, we've got basically, they're required to provide the information to us, and in the code here we've written that basically there's a fee set up too that we can basically, we'll collect from the applicant to allow us to go out and get a third party, an RF engineer, to review that data with the city to make that determination then. So that's built into the code too, as part of the requirements.
Okay.
Some other dimensional requirements that were updated pertain to the setback requirements then. The new setback requirements for any cell tower would be 110% of the tower height. So if you're proposing a 200-foot tower, you're looking at a 220-foot setback from the property lines. Compared to what our current code has, some cases basically from a rear property line, you might have a 25-foot to 35-foot rear yard setback. So that's an update in terms of the setback requirements. For equipment such as the buildings, the equipment generators, that setback is established at 10 feet or the specific zoning district setback. In most cases, that setback is going to be 25 to 50 feet on a zoning district in that case then. And then finally, the maximum tower height did not change. The current code has 300, and that was kept at 300 then. New requirement that was added in here is a separation requirement. That's in addition to that setback. That requires basically a cell tower to be located, separated from a residential property, specific distances here. So not only have to meet the setback requirement, but also the separation requirement. And for camouflage towers, the palm tree or the flagpole, that's 2 times the tower height. And then for the guided lattice or monopole, that's going to be 4 times the tower height, that separation requirement from the residential property line. Also, there's a requirement in there that towers have to be at least a half a mile apart in terms of siting location then. Some additional requirements that were either added or clarified in the ordinance then, it outlines the review process and submittal requirements to either co-locate an antenna on an existing tower, to construct a new tower, to install new communication, or to rebuild a tower to make it structurally sound to support co-location. We also are going to require basically the visual impact analysis. That allows us to basically get a view from that cell tower from various viewpoints of the surrounding properties from various distances. That wasn't allowed in our code before, and this is a requirement now. Also, we're going to maintain the requirements to install a fence or a wall around the compound, along with the necessary landscaping that's already in our code, and so that was maintained in there. And the last item is establishes 2 fees. First is a special fee requirement, so the city can hire that independent engineer to assist us in reviewing the information submitted by a cell tower company and to support our co-location or to support a new tower then. So that will allow us to pay for that third-party engineer to assist us in the review. And the second fee is a security fund payment fee. That is for either adding an antenna to an existing tower or at constructing a new tower. And what that fund will allow us to do is to have that fund, and if there's ever a nuisance related to a cell tower, let's say, you know, something happens with the storm and basically the cell tower is damaged and we cannot get the property owner to go through code enforcement to fix it, we can go in there and abate the problem and then use that money to fix the problem and then basically bill back the owner on that then.
Okay.
So it allows us to kind of move a little bit quicker in resolving issues related to cell towers then. That's kind of an overview of the code amendment that we've got before you. One other thing we wanted to point out that there was an email sent here about an hour ago before the council meeting about some minor changes to the ordinance, and just want to briefly go over what those are. First, pages 11 and 12, it's really just the highlighted area. All we did was add basically cross references to make the code easier to read. No addition of text, just basically cross references to easier to follow that hierarchy.
Cross-reference is not substantive.
And then the next page, basically pages 13 and 14, is we noticed basically there was one portion of the zoning district, the PCA district. It has 3 sub-districts to it, and one of them was missing, the neighborhood district. So we added that back in there.
That's substantive.
And so that's basically been added into on page 13, and again on 14, just to make it consistent. And the last item was basically just a clarification note on one of the requirements for the siting requirements. Just adding communication tower to make that that code requirement a little bit more clear in the intent then. So those are the changes that we had sent out to you then, and we just wanted to bring them to attention at the presentation here. Staff is recommending approval, subject to these changes being made prior to second reading.
Okay. These changes do not impact anything that's currently in production now, right?
No, just more basically, it's, you know, like I say, crossroad and just clarifying that ordinance then.
We are 22 years since our last revision. Jake, is it possible, would we need to write it into the ordinance, or can we do it in our own code that this get reviewed by staff once every 5 years so we don't fall behind with changing technologies and the like? Basically, I don't want to repeat.
Noted, we can, I fear for putting it in the ordinance that now you're limiting yourself, but noted that we have a lot of things like this that have been lying fallow. Telecommunications, you just saw the county go through an impact fee thing. There might be situations where you don't want to be tied into a 5-year. Having said that, our internal staff rate on stuff like this, we can put it on that and make sure at least we bring it up to you and go.
Yeah, as long as there's some sort of system. I mean,
we'll reviewing
reviewing it doesn't end it or anything other than that. Just as if you could just take a look at some sort of system that we can put in place to make sure it gets reviewed every 5 years, and let us know what that will be.
We sure will.
Okay.
Perfect. And that will be for probably all policies, not just this one.
And I'd appreciate particularly anything like this where we're dealing with something that with evolving technologies. You know, and that was a fun read. I can say that 211 pages of agenda, not our longest agenda ever, but 82 of it were just this.
Yeah.
It was a fun read Sunday night. I did manage to stay awake.
Well, there was a game going in overtime. Of course, you stayed awake.
Yeah, well, had to do something after the game to bring myself down to. This was it. Comments, questions, council?
No, I mean, we got what we asked for. We were looking for, you know, better protection and minimalizing the impacts on residential areas, and I think this accomplished it really well.
Yeah, because of safeguards for residential areas, and also focus it more on basically, like you said, you know, the industrial type properties and the, you know, city-owned properties where there's more space to do the cell tower communications. But we also have that caveat too. If there is a unique circumstance, it allows for a variance to be applied for and come back before the council to make that ultimate decision then on other properties located in Port Orange.
Yeah, I think that's important.
Yeah, and let's face it, I mean, this is a balancing act. Nope, there are reasons you may or may not want these right next to your house.
Absolutely.
But you do want the service that goes along with it.
Yeah.
So this is a balancing act, no doubt about it. Who else is here to speak to this? Come on up.
Mayor, Commissioner, good evening. My name's Katie Cole with the law firm of Hill Ward Henderson. I represent Crown Castle USA, who is a wireless communications provider throughout the country. We received a copy of this ordinance a couple weeks ago from your outside counsel. Actually, Mr. Jones forwarded it to our small cell group, and it made its way through the corporate structure and finally got to the tower construction folks last week, so I apologize for the delayed review. We did speak with Mr. Jones last Friday, sent him a letter today, and I have a copy for the record for each of you with some minor comments. I don't know that any are significant, but I did want to highlight some of these comments that we did have. We appreciate exactly what you said, Mayor, the balance between providing service and reliable service to the community, as well as the aesthetics and the protections for your residential neighborhoods. And with that in line, I just wanted to highlight a couple of the things that we included here. The first is dealing with the hierarchy of sites, and in the section B1, the ordinance states that cost and lease price is not a factor in not choosing that site, but then later in the ordinance in page 15, it references the reasonableness and diligence of applying the hierarchy of sites. So we'd simply ask that that be reconciled. Respectfully, I'm sure that you don't intend to have more money be charged by the city for these sites than a private property owner, and so we'd just like to have some balance for commercially reasonable leases. Certainly should not be a factor in eliminating these sites, but unreasonable leases should be able to be used as a reason for elimination. We certainly appreciate it aligns with federal law that the co-location as your first priority is appropriate, but restricting co-location by a hierarchy of sites after that really should be predicated upon the service providers and their needs as opposed to the site location. Co-location is the first thing that providers look for, and that's what the federal government also requires and asks for, and so the hierarchy of sites is almost redundant in that instance, and we'd ask for that to be removed. A couple other just notes on the setbacks. There's no provision in this ordinance that I saw, and I apologize, in our late review of it, for an engineer to provide engineered reports and construction data for breakpoint technology. Often some of these sites are smaller in nature when you're trying to get to smaller non-obtrusive sites, and so we'd respectfully request that engineering reports and sufficient construction opportunities be made for breakpoint technologies which allow for a tower to collapse upon itself. So with that, you have these comments here. We're happy to work with your staff. I also reached out to Mr. Resnick, your outside counsel, this morning to let him know that I'd be here. He was in meetings all day today, and so we didn't connect. But certainly happy to go through these and any other changes that the industry may think would be appropriate. So thank you for your time and efforts, and Mr. Jones for your time on Friday. So.
Thank you. Thank you. Matt, you want to comment on any of that?
We're reviewing that. We'll bring back before second reading if we see the need to make any changes prior to second reading based on those comments, but at this time we don't have any recommendations for you to make any changes. Okay.
Do me a favor, prior to second reading, rather than wait till the second reading itself, after you and you guys have completed that review, if you and Margaret can get us your comments and your recommendations in regards to that, so that we can have a chance to sift through it prior to that meeting, so that we can be prepared instead of all of a sudden we're sitting on our hands at the second reading and we might not have what we need at that point. So I appreciate you doing the legwork in advance on that.
Will do.
Any other questions of council? Makes sense. All right. Well, we're going to go to the public. Gee, I wonder if there's anybody here to speak to that. Robert. You get first bite.
Thank you. Mayor, council members, Robert Reinhagen, Port Orange. In particular, I was concerned about the special fee that If it's a complex proposal, you're allowed to get outside consultants and then charge the people that want to build the tower for that service. And my concern would be that anybody that proposed putting up a tower would see this as a arbitrary, capricious act that may even be considered punitive, in the sense that we should be able to evaluate their proposal, and if we're not competent to evaluate them, then that should not be their fault, and they should not have to pay for us to get consultants to do this. So that would be my concern, that they would you could be open for lawsuits or something if they felt they were being abused, punished, whatever.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you.
That's an interesting thought, but just along those lines, I think it's interesting to note the number of items that, the four of us have to make policy on that we have no expertise on. I'm not an engineer. I have a master's degree in business administration, and this is I count on a good, solid staff doing their legwork, and there are some things and some people we don't necessarily have on staff because these things don't come up all the time. So it doesn't make sense to employ somebody that can do this job for something that comes up occasionally. So from time to time, we do need to get outside help, and you guys tell me what you think, but I think we should be entitled to cover our costs for that from a community development standpoint rather than feed it on to the taxpayers.
And Mayor, just to add to that point, we for the things that we are competent enough to evaluate in-house,
which is quite a bit of things.
Everybody pays for those services already in fees.
Yep.
So you pay a permit fee. If I need somebody that's not on staff, I could just charge an exorbitant fee for everybody, and then just say no, don't worry about this.
I'd rather
it's
you
free
not.
because everybody's paying for it. This is a one-off. If we need an RF engineer, and as time goes on, maybe we will need one, but we're not this year, not next year. So I think it's to our benefit to stick with the contractor, if required, to keep the requestees' costs down, unless we absolutely need it.
I was going to say to Mr. Reinhagen's point, just because we can do it doesn't mean we necessarily should do that.
Absolutely.
I do not want to. We shouldn't take advantage of it and abuse people.
Absolutely.
Other comments? Anyone else from the public like to speak to this? There being none, back to council. Any questions or comments? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Bastian?
Yes.
Councilman Silver?
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont?
Yes.
Mayor Burnett?
Yes, 4-0. Brings us to regular agenda. Item 20, ratification approval of task authorization number 20 with Mead and Hunt in the Taylor Road Bridge at B19 and Sweetwater emergency repairs.
Mayor, just to go back, that last motion was with the changes that we just discussed, correct?
With the changes.
With the highlighted changes,
Just want to make it clear
not
for the record.
Yeah.
Okay.
Indeed. That Tim presented so eloquently, I might add.
I wouldn't add that.
May I have a motion for approval of item 20?
So moved.
Second.
Jake, this is part 1 of 2
Yes, sir,
for
part
the
1 of 2.
engineering services that we needed to do for the emergency repair.
Yes, sir. These were emergency repairs. I will report that much to the chagrin sometimes of our public, Lynn did go out rapidly and try. She got a bunch of experts together down there at the bridge to try to come up with a scope of work and get the lowest bidder, even though this was an emergency repair. She did that with both the task authorization that ended up we used Mead and Hunt and the PNS paving. So we were quick to pick Mead and Hunt because it's just a task authorization on the services they already provide. But the next one, PNS, we definitely did our due diligence and and they ended up saying, we can do that, and with all the unknowns that were out there. So both of them were not just, you two, come here and build. So it was an emergency repair. I think I chatted with well, no, I didn't call you. You all called me and said, fix it fast.
Yeah.
So we fixed it fast, but
yesterday.
we did do some due diligence to get the best price, and I think we have, I'll call them trusted agents here in the city. Quinton Hampton and P&S have not let us down before, and they didn't let us down in this one.
I think that is always a tough call because you're trying to look out for the dollars and cents of it, but at the same time, when you're doing an emergency repair, you also need to go with people who have a good reputation, know can get the job done in a limited amount of time, and I appreciate that. I am a huge fan of going out to bid whenever it makes sense. When we need something done in emergency, obviously we can't do that in the normal ways.
Sure.
Council comments or questions? There being none, anyone else like to speak to this? We have a motion and a second for approval of ratification. Item 20, call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. Item 21 is a request for ratification of emergency purchase order to P&S Paving for those same Taylor Road repairs. May I have a motion for approval?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. Jake just reviewed it. Council comments or questions? There being none, anyone else care to speak to this? There being none, call the roll.
Councilman Bastian.
Yes.
Councilman Stiltner.
Yes.
Vice Mayor Tremont.
Yes.
Mayor Burnett.
Yes, 4-0. City Attorney comments, I'm sorry, Matt?
Sorry, Matt.
No comments.
Especially after that, I'm sorry. City Attorney comments. City Manager additional items.
Yes, sir. Couple items this evening. Number one, before Scott Stiltner was appointed to the TPO board, Lois Ballenbeck had asked me, told me there was a position for a citizen to participate on the Bikes and Trails Subcommittee, Citizen Subcommittee. I started looking for a few folks to do that. I found a suitable candidate and forwarded that name to Councilman Stiltner, and I would like Councilman Stiltner to consider officially in public Jeff Martindale. Jeff Martindale is a cyclist. He is a competitive cyclist. He is a family cyclist. He is a jogger and walker on our trails, and he is in the sports program at ERAU, administrative level, and I think he'd be a welcome addition to the community. He does come to our council meetings occasionally, and I think he'd be a good addition to the team here and represent us probably after he gets acclimated to the tune of Bobby Ball. So that's my recommendation to Councilman Stiltner.
Scott, that's your appointment. You have any problem with that, or
Yeah,
you want to examine that?
No, I'm good with that, and I've actually have a TPO, my first TPO meeting will be tomorrow.
Right.
So I'd like to be able, if you guys are all good, I don't think we need a vote,
Yeah.
but if everybody's good with it, then consensusly, I'll make that, so.
If you're good with it, I am.
Okay.
Well, and also too, since Bob was the alternate when I was the TPO thing, I'm more than happy to be the alternate. If you can't make it, then, for those, but they have to formally.
So if we haven't, Councilman Stiltner, we will appoint you and appoint.
I've already been.
Okay, so
Yeah,
we'll make
and
sure
just
that.
make me the alternate
We'll make
with
sure
them.
you can
Yep.
still be the alternate. We've talked about the next subject. We've talked about the 4:30 joint meeting, joint workshop. I'll get working on that and get a draft agenda out to you. I have noticed at my level in recent, probably since November or so, that there have been requests for the city to get involved in civil affairs, and I know we want to make everybody happy, but But I just want you to know that I'm going to shy away from civil affairs and point out as often as I can when they are civil issues and not code issues. You know, can't the police do something? My neighbor and I keep on yelling at each other. It's a civil affair until it's not. We're cognizant that things can get ugly quick, and that's what we have a police department for. But these squabbles about things that are civil in nature, I'd like to try to stay away from. So every once in a while, you'll get an email from me that after I've talked to the city attorney, that I believe these things to be civil affairs, and try to stay away from them, because it will occupy a heck of a lot of our time that we don't have. We
When
have
you
a
make
staff.
those determinations, just share that with us. so
Yeah,
we know what's
absolutely,
going on.
absolutely. And then,
Jake, if I can just comment on
Sure.
that. My only thing with that is, and I agree 100%. We don't want to stick our nose in something that is going to end up in
Truly
civil
civil.
litigation.
Yeah.
I got that. Community mediation is different. I think that is a
Absolutely.
good
Yeah.
avenue for us to be able to identify.
Yeah.
We will be wise to do that, and a lot of times that's just the problem in a lot of those things by nature is nobody knows who the mediator could be, and we've got a lot of folks that are very good at that. And so what I don't like to see is something that is civil in nature spin into something that becomes out of control, where criminal things do tend to occur or develop, all because nobody tried the opportunity for mediation. Mediation doesn't always work. I get that. Been there, tried it. I know those scenarios, but I just want to, and I appreciate your comments. They're point on, but I don't want to neglect the opportunities for us to step in and be a community mediator when those opportunities are there. Sometimes people don't agree to that, and I get that too, and that's where you've just got to move on and identify those. And I appreciate yours and staff's, because a lot of times on face values, like one in particular you and I talked about, you don't know that it's civil. You think, you see something, you hear something, you're like, oh man, that's got to be a code issue or a law enforcement issue or whatever.
It's not always clear.
That's right. So,
Right.
and I appreciate staff's time to differentiate those, and man, it's amazing, even with all the technology we have and the documentation, we've got places in our city where there hasn't been an issue of a certain nature in 3-4 decades. You've almost got to go back and try to figure out what is what, especially when it comes to easements and properties and different things like that. So I appreciate the time that staff has to put into that, and they do a good job at that.
And lastly, I would like your thoughts or consensus on the staff's proposal to change the ordinance for purchasing that will enable the staff to change the purchasing manual, not the ordinance that you write the policy on how we can purchase, but the manual that provides the process for following those ordinances without council approval. You write an ordinance that says the city manager can approve purchases $25,000 and less. I write a manual that says if it's $5,000 you do this, if it's 15 you do this, if it's 25 you do this, if it's 25,000.01 you go to council, which is what the ordinance says. Well, right now you have to approve that whole 120-page purchasing manual, and all it does is state the procedures for executing the ordinances. If you are amenable to that, sometime in this process when we're, and this is ERP driven, sometime in the process when we're doing the ordinance changes to help the ERP execute correctly, we will bring that ordinance to you that will allow us to manipulate the purchasing manual that provides the processes for adhering to the ordinances that you all write. It's in my opinion, it should have always been that way, but there was a period of time where it was probably good that you all read it. And it's all for you to read at any time, and I will take comments if you think something should be changed. But I'd rather during the ERP process be able to manipulate that document in draft mode and kind of operate off it, as we're working through ERP, and then solidify it come January of next year, and not have to come to you to sign off on something that just says what you told us to do. So, if you're up for that, we'll get something in works with all the myriad
I'm
other
okay with
things
it,
we're
yeah.
doing, to change the ordinance, and that'll be it.
Any issues with that?
No.
Nope. Okay. Anything
I don't
else?
see any.
All right, that's it, sir.
Okay. Chase, you got some good news about First Step Shelter?
No good news, nothing really. I mean,
They did break ground.
yeah,
Finally.
well, and that's the thing, when you start seeing some vertical movement, then, the anticipation is that, the fundraising will be a lot easier, so, yeah, nothing new at this time.
Okay. Port Orange South Daytona Chamber of Commerce, next week on Wednesday, they are sponsoring the city manager breakfast. The city managers of South Daytona and somebody here from Port Orange who's sitting there at the end will have the opportunity to address the public from both cities at that breakfast, at the end of which there will be some public service awards given to the firefighter and officers of the year, and it's really a terrific presentation, so if anybody's
Is
available.
that this month? Just kidding.
Next Wednesday.
Come on.
Yeah, huh?
It's late, I know.
So your little 3-minute spiel that you're gonna give next week?
Right,
Okay.
right.
Art House, we don't have anybody appointed to Art House right now. And with that, I think that is it for the evening.
I got one last quick thing.
Unless Scott has one last quick thing.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to make sure that the evening didn't go without us mentioning an incident that occurred in our city last week. We had a resident who was also a retired law enforcement officer from our community, and is currently serving as a law enforcement officer in another community, have an unfortunate medical episode and heart attack at a local business here in the city of Port Orange. And what I wanted to note was that another resident who serves currently as a firefighter for another community quickly sprung into great heroic action and was able to use an AED device that the business had on hand to not only effectively save this person's life, but do something outside of what his call was. You know, he was there just basically working out, and here's an incident that that neither he or the victim had prepared themselves for that morning, and that's worthy of mentioning, and I look forward to having them both here in the chambers to recognize what occurred. But I think it's worth mentioning for our business partners out in the community the value of these AED devices, and so I would like to ask the chamber when they're available to maybe help promote that. I don't even know what those devices cost, but I do know that you start to see more and more and more incidents. I know we had one at Spruce Creek High School just a couple of years ago where they saved a football player's life on the field with one of those devices, and I know they get used periodically, and you see them. So just for residents in our community, make note when you go into businesses. Look for these devices hanging on the wall. If you don't know what they look like, right outside here at City Hall, just as you come in the front door, there's one right there by the elevators. And so those boxes can save a life. And the value, and they do all the time, and the value should not go without notice.
Which, if we're going to take that to the next step, Jake, I'm sure that we can get some information from Fire Rescue that we could probably pump up on the city website that businesses can access.
We can.
Public information campaign there?
Yep.
Of a certain sort?
Yep.
Christine's nodding yes. With a smile, I might add. So,
Yeah.
Anything else come before us this evening? If not, we will see you first Tuesday in February.
February 5th.
Good night.
February 5th.